All right, you guys. So we are still in Module 3, working with animating type with sound and visual effects. So for today's demonstration, we're going to be working with 2 video files. And you'll find them in, I believe, this zip folder, mini movie demonstration files. By now, you guys have probably already downloaded both of these zip files, so it should contain all of the videos that we'll probably need. I think there are 2 more I'm going to upload for next week when we wrap this up. So I do think we're going to wrap up this module on Tuesday and then talk about the next assignment in this class. The things that I want to show you today in today's demonstration are ways to integrate type into the scenery. And so in these 2 examples that I'm going to play for you, we have a video file that runs in the background, and then we have type elements that participate in that environment or appear to. So we're working with type that's been converted to 3D type. We're using a special feature that tracks the camera angles and allows us to create type in a perspective that is similar to what's going on in the video footage in the background. So that's one way that we're going to work on integrating type into a scene. And then we have another example here where type is integrated into the background elements of a scene. So we have a video file here. Looks like it's kind of rendering through. Let me move my interpreter over here for a second. So you can see that it looks like type has been embossed into the brick road in this scene. And so we're going to learn how to do this today. We're going to also be working with type in 3D mode as well in this exercise. We're going to apply an emboss filter to that, an inner shadow, and also apply what's called a darkened blending mode. And that's what's going to help the texture in the video file to shine through and become part of the texture of the type that you see on top. All right? Now this type is not really, we're not magically making it a part of this brick road. It's actually a type on its own layer. And we're going to use a null object to create a scaling transformation with that type, and that's what's going to allow the type to look as though it's part of the ground. And so as that video footage, its perspective and its zoom level changes, the type looks as though it's a part of those zoom level and perspective changes. And so we're going to do that through a null layer. All right, so to get started, we're going to create a new composition from one of these video files. What do you say we get started with the one that's called Lombardi first? So I'm going to stop this video. And just a little refresher, when you are working with video files and you know that that's going to be your main composition and you're wanting to add visual effects and motion graphics to that, then we want to use that video file as our starting point for creating a new composition. So you'll want to import those assets into a brand new After Effects document. And so you would set it up with just the standard composition settings that we've been using. Of course, actually scratch what I just said because we're going to make our composition through the video file. So once you import the video files into your project window, go find the video file that you're looking for. So here's my pan bridge. Here's the video file. That's not the one. I wanted Lombard. Sorry. This is the file we're working with. Okay. Nope, not that one. That one's already been in composition. Hang on. This one. Ah. All right. So this is the video file we're working with. Kind of small. And it's just the MP4 file right now. Okay. So we're going to create a composition from this MP4 file. And so just to remind you all how to do that, you go find the MP4 file in your projects window. You're going to right click on it or control click, and you're going to choose new comp from selection. And here's our new composition. We're going to play it. And this is what it looks like in the beginning. Can you guys tell a difference between this video version and the one that we saw previously? I mean, minus the absence of the type elements. So in this one, the video plays a lot faster. The bike's moving faster, everything's moving faster. In this one, just the raw video, it's a lot slower. So we want to speed that up a little bit. Now, we can't edit video in After Effects. So After Effects will receive finished video, but there are some things that you can do to speed up or slow down the duration of a video file. So we're going to do what's called time enabling remapping on this file. So right now, this composition that we've just created is about 10 seconds long. If I go to composition settings, you can see right here it says the duration is 10 seconds long. Okay. If I go to my previous composition, which you guys won't have, but I'm just going to show you, the duration for that composition where everything is sped up is 5 seconds. So we need to reduce the speed of this by 5 seconds. And the way you don't do it is you don't change the composition settings of this new composition just by going in and changing 10 seconds of duration to 5 seconds, because what will happen is it will still play at the same speed, it'll just stop at 5 seconds. So we're actually trying to speed up how quickly this video file plays. So we're going to do what's called remapping. So to do that, I'm going to take the sucker out of my mouth, and then I'm going to control click on this layer, and I'm going to go to time, and you're going to choose enable time remapping. Now look at your layer and see that that time remapping has been applied to that layer. And if it's not open for you to see the keyframes and what's going on with the time remapping, make sure that you click that expand button so that you can see what's going on. So in the timeline, you can see that we have 2 keyframes. First, we have just the layer of visibility of the content itself. So this is the video file in its entirety. These keyframes mark the starting and the stopping time of this video. Now, these keyframes can move. They can change position. And so if I slide this ending keyframe to, say, the 5-second mark, and then play my video, it speeds up. Now, it's got to buffer through for a second. And wait just a second. This is probably my sign that I need to go out and clean some things out on my computer. Now, the second time it plays, it should go through pretty quickly. So that's a better speed to work with. Now you'll notice that after this stopping keyframe of where the video ends, that is really where the video stops. It's finished. So what happens after that keyframe is that we're just seeing a still image of the last frame of that video. So if you'll notice, as this playhead passes over that keyframe, everything freezes. All right. Now you can choose to, you can choose to keep this a 10-second long duration composition, but just know that after 5 seconds, if you leave that keyframe right where it's at, the video is going to stop. It'll just be visible as a still frame. And if that works for your concept, then great. If not, if you want the composition to end when the video stops, then you can go in and change the composition settings. So you'll wait until after you do the time remapping before you go in and change your composition settings. All right? So you get that stopping keyframe where it needs to be, where you want that video to stop. And then if you want to chop it off after that and not have the still image after that, then you can go and reset the composition settings. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go to Composition, Settings, and I'm going to change this from 10 seconds in duration to 0.5 seconds in duration. And now when I play it, it plays through at a faster rate and it stops when I want it to. So we didn't actually edit the video, we just played around with the time remapping, that's all. How'd that work for you guys? Who all followed along? Yeah? Okay. Rachel, Lou, you and I have been through that before. Yeah. We kind of, so I knew this was probably a review for you. All right. All right, so now it's time to make the type elements. All right. So we want to create some type that looks like it's a part of this brick roadway. All right. So we're going to start this with just getting the type tool. Come out to the composition window. Bring your playhead all the way back to the beginning so you can see what the video looks like at the very beginning and get an idea of where you want to place your type. All right, so with your type tool selected, I'm going to hit my all caps button because I want all my lettering to be in all caps. I'm going to type the word cycle. And my font style is Bakersville, semi-bold, if that matters to you. And my font size is 317 pixels. All right, and now I'm going to turn off my caps lock button so that I can pick up my type and move it. Remember, if I tried to move it without turning that button off, everything on my screen would look like it disappeared. But if that happens to you, don't panic. Just hit that caps lock button to turn it off and everything will reappear again. All right, so I want to put this type in the right perspective. So remember, we have it lying flat on the ground and have it kind of aligned up next to this little wrought iron trim work here. So I'm going to put this in 3D mode. So to do that, you want to make sure that your little control bar at the top of your layers window is visible. If it's not, there's a button down here that allows you to show the control panel. There's a little cube icon. This is for 3D layer. Allows the object to be manipulated in 3 dimensions. Just check that box. And now you should see a little gizmo pop up over your type element. So when I hover my cursor over these different colored bars, a little letter pops up next to my cursor, or my cursor updates to a letter. This is letting you know which axes you can manipulate if you were to click and drag on any of these little radial gizmos. So I'm rotating it on the x-axis at the moment, just to lean it down. And then I'm going to grab it by the z-axis and just give it a little bit of a spin. Then I'll grab it on the y-axis and drag it down closer to the fence. And I think I'd like to decrease some of the spacing between these letter characters, just to kind of bring them in a little closer together. So to do that, I'm going to select my type layer. And then for the tracking ratio, I'm just going to lower that a little bit so those letter characters sit closer together. Now, to really make this type look like it's aligned in a more meaningful way to this wrought iron work, we're going to create a path that's going to serve as a mask for that type. And that's going to allow us to put just a very subtle bow and the baseline of those type characters and create a subtle curvature that follows this wrought iron edging a little bit better, okay? So we've put type on a path before, so this is really no different, all right? We're going to start with the pen tool. And it's very important, if you start at the E and work your way back to the C, creating that path, what's going to happen is it's going to flip your type and run it in the reverse direction once you make that a mask. Okay? It's going to snap to the beginning of that line segment, wherever you first create that line segment. That's where it's going to put the first letter of that word. So it'll flip your type around. So make sure that you create your path under the C and then end it under the E, all right? So I'm going to put a line here and a line, a vertices in point 1 and then a vertices at the second point. Now, I don't need this to be a filled path, so I'm just going to turn that off. And it really doesn't need to have a color assigned to it at all, to be honest. But I did click and hold the mouse button down and drag as I created those vertices so that they would both be curved vertices, because that's kind of important. We need to be able to manipulate that path once we snap the type to it. Oh, darn it. You know what I just did? I did all this blabbing and was not paying any attention to the fact that I did not have my type layer selected when I created that path. So what I did by accident was create an unnecessary shape layer, which I don't need. So I'm going to delete that. Now I'm going to do it the right way. So I have my type selected. I'm going to get my pen tool. I'm going to create a vertices here and a vertices here. And then I'm going to get my selection tool and just kind of edit that path a little bit. So I just have a very subtle curve where it just barely touches the tops of those wrought iron posts. Now I'm going to go down to the text portion of my type layer, go to Path Options, and where it says Path, None, click that drop-down menu and choose Mask. Now our type is snapped to the path. And so if we need to make any changes to our path, the type will follow. It is now attached to it. And I'm being very strategic as I place this type. So not only am I trying to just get my path the way I want it, the type arced the way I want it, but I'm also lining it up to certain landmarks. This is really important for that scaling process. When the type looks like it's stamped into the sidewalk, that scaling process requires us to have some landmarks that we shoot for when we are scaling that type back, so it looks like it's staying stationary, or it's a part of that walkway. So I'm going to scoot this down just a smidgen. And I'm really looking at, for me, the edge of this E and this last post here. That's going to be my landmark that I'm aiming for when I do this scaling technique. So I'm just kind of getting it set up and posed the way I want it. All right, so now let's work with the color adjustments of this. So make sure that your type layer is selected. And we're going to add some effects to this. I'm going to start with layer. My apologies, it always takes me a second because I go between effects and layer. First, I'm going to sample some color for this type. I'm going to change it from white to something that looks more like the color in the background. So I'll select the type, choose the color fill window. Instead of choosing color inside of this color picker box, I'm going to choose this eyedropper and just sample some of the brick color in the background. So it almost, disappears, just about. Okay, now I'm going to go to layer, and I'm looking for blending mode, which is right there. It's not letting me choose it, so hang on a second. I'm going to go to composition settings. I'm going to go to 3D renderer and choose OK. And I thought that would do the trick. Let me think about this for a second. Take it back to basic. Okay, I figured out what it was. So when I went to composition settings, you have these different rendering modes. And so I went to 3D renderer, and under renderer, I changed mine to classic 3D. It was set to advanced 3D, which I had just clicked on previously when I was trying to figure out what was going on. So you need to have this set to classic 3D. And then if you don't see the blending mode under layer, go check your composition settings, because that probably is the reason why you don't see the blending mode as an option. So set it to classic 3D and then hit OK. And then you should be able to go to layer and see blending mode. And you want to choose darken. So it looks like my type has completely disappeared, but it really hasn't. It's still very much there. And in fact, I can kind of still see an essence of the letter characters. But what's happening is it's called a blending. The blending mode is called darken, and it somewhat darkens that layer, but it also makes it more transparent, or I don't even know if transparent's the right word. It picks up on the pattern in the background. And so you're seeing some of this, you're seeing the brick texture shine through the type elements. Now obviously they get really lost the way they are right now. So we're going to have to add some more treatments to this text so that it will stand out more and look more like a three-dimensional impression in the brick, all right? And so that's where these other effects are going to come in. We're going to go to Effect. You want to make sure that your type layer is still selected. And you're going to go to, and again, sorry, I always have to hunt and peck because I don't do this every day. We're going to go to I'm looking for inner shadow. But if you see bevel or emboss, preferably bevel, you can go ahead and apply that as well. And I think that's down here in stylize. It's emboss. There is a bevel and emboss effect, but I don't like it as much. I really like the emboss much better. So there's the emboss. You can increase the relief on it, the contrast, blend with original. We can always come back and play around with these properties. Also the direction you can reset. But we need an inner shadow, and that's really going to make this have more contrast, but yet still look completely transparent. So let's go find that inner shadow. Again, make sure that your layer is selected. Go to Layer in the menu bar, and then go to Layer Styles, and choose Inner Shadow. And this also has its own properties that can be manipulated and managed. Now, you can still change the lettering of this type, even after we've done all of these things to it. You can still select it and retype something else entirely, and it will still apply those effects and features that we just applied. All right. So I'm going to back out of here a little bit so we can see the whole thing. I'm going to play it really quick. So you can see what's happening now as I play it. So it looks like the type is moving, but it's not. It's actually just staying in the exact same spot. It's the video that's moving. And so it looks like they're kind of moving in two different directions. Like the brick is coming toward us and the cycle is moving away from us, when really it's just the video file that's creating that effect. So we're going to apply a scaling technique to this type to make it scale back. Right, yeah, scale toward us as the video file plays out. And so what I was saying earlier, that landmark that you need to shoot for the scaling technique, pay close attention to your type elements at the beginning of your timeline, and find some structures that the type elements can align to. Those are going to be your landmarks. So for me, it's the tip of that bottom corner of that E and how it lines up with that little wrought iron post. That's going to be my scaling destination. Now here's the deal. I just said that we're going to use a scaling technique, but it's not scaling the way you're thinking about scaling, okay? We can't very well go in and just hit the scale transformation properties in the layers master transformation properties, because we've done too much to this type. We've put it in 3D mode. We've applied an inner shadow to it, a blending mode to it, and an emboss feature to it. And those all are separate elements that have been applied to this type. And so we can't just scale the type and have all of those separate applications of those elements scale appropriately with it. It's just too much for one layer to handle. You've got to think about, once you start applying treatments to these layers, you got to think of every application of an effect or a feature as another moving part, that this program has to consider when you want to make a transformation like that. So that is why null layers are so handy. So we've already experienced working with a null object before. We're going to do it again today. And so in today's demonstration, we're going to use a null layer to essentially put this type element into its own protective wrapper, okay, that keeps all of its effects and blending modes and things that we applied to it nicely protected and still visible and intact. But it's going to allow us to scale that as a flattened object. So, you know, if you've taken my animation class, you know, we talk a lot about nesting animations into symbols, you know, so that we can do other things with those animated elements and have, you know, more freedom and control with them. And so that's kind of what this null layer allows us to do with this complex element, is it allows us to be able to manipulate it as a flattened or a grouped object. All right? So let's create our null layer. So I'm going to go up here to Layer, New, and choose Null Object. I'm going to bring my playhead all the way back to the beginning. I prefer to have my null right above my type layer, but to each your own. You can put it wherever you want. So we're going to group the type layer to this null object. Does anybody know how we're going to do that? Because we've done it before. The swirl. I'll accept that. I think what Lou meant to say was the pick whip. But yes, you could also refer to it as a little cinnamon bun or... But yeah, it's a little swirl. So we're going to click on the pick whip and we're going to drag this up to the null layer. So now they're grouped. Now the null is going to control the type. So we're going to open this null layer and we're going to open the transform layer. And we're going to set a keyframe for scale. And I don't think we need to set one for position, but if we need to come back and do that, we will. I'm going to set my interpreter right up here in this little window. And now I'm going to move my playhead out to the end of this video. And then I'm going to scale my type back to where that E aligns with that little post. And now, when you play your presentation, it should look like that type is embossed into that brick and she's just riding her bike right on by it. Did that work for you guys? Raquel? Okay, you had to look like you... Okay. Okay. All right. Any questions? Anything I need to go back over? Nope. All right. Well, let's move on to our next video file, okay? By the sea. So go find your video file. I call it by the sea because that's the type element that I type in there, but it's called Pan Bridge. All right, and I'm going to create a new composition from video file. So right click. And there we have it. Now, there are some sound elements too that you can add to this. There's one that's called Sea Wave. And if you want, You can even add a bike click sound, which kind of makes sense, right? But what we also want to add is a type element that looks like it's racing with the biker, okay? In order to pull this off, we need to set up, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. We need to set up some markers of the camera angles in this video file, all right? And After Effects has a way of being able to scan a video file and set up perspective markers. And that's how we're going to create our type. So, you might be wondering, well, why wouldn't we just set it up the way we did before? Create some type, put it in 3D mode, swivel it. Well, in order for it to work with this video file that has ever-changing camera angles, we need a better map to follow, something that the type will be better responsive to. And so we're going to track these various changing camera angles through a special feature that's going to allow us to create type through that as well, okay? So, we're going to start with the video file, so the MP4 file, and we're going to control click, and we're going to go to track and stabilize. And you're going to choose track camera. Right now it's analyzing the background. It's going to run through this little process until it's analyzed all the background. And you're going to see these little stars pop up everywhere. Y'all see that? You see on my screen? All these little stars? Y'all see those? Okay. These are what we're going to use as markers to track, to help control the angle of the type as we animate it down that road. Because you see, in this view, we're looking more directly at the road, almost from a parallel view. And by the end, we're looking more down that road. So that angle changes pretty severely. So tracking these angles is a really good thing to do. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to select some of these little star shapes. But there's just hundreds of them, so we're not going to select them up here in the bridge or out here in the bushes. Our goal is to select the ones, and you're going to hold Shift. I'm going to start with these that are at the level of the road, and that's really where my focus is. And you don't have to you don't have to go all the way down the road, because it won't let you. If you start to move the playhead, that selection area will disappear. So find where you want to start making your selections. I would do it probably more at the beginning, and I would select some stars that are on the plane or the level where you want your type to exist. So I'm creating this, you see how it's highlighted on the ground, this field, this area. So this is establishing the space and the perspective for that type, all right? And then there's this big red bullseye right in the middle. Y'all see that? All right, right click on that. There's an option to create text and camera. Oop, what happened? There it is. So all of my highlighted field went away, but I did create text. And it's very hard to see that I did. Mainly because it's that same color of my text previously, that kind of pinkish brown color. And and it kind of blends in with the road, but it really does say text right there, right where my arrow is following, all right? And it's in the perspective of that camera angle. If I select it, select that type, you can see it's in 3D mode. It automatically puts it in 3D mode because it understands that this text was created based on tracking camera angles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this gizmo to get my type in the right orientation. So I'm going to stand it up, and I'm going to swivel it around. I'm also going to give it a different color because right now that is not going to stand out very well. It looks just like the asphalt. So I'm going to, sorry, where'd my type go? Did I just delete it somehow? What did I do? Undo, rotate. I just lost my type somehow. Undo, 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 undo. Let me do this again. My apologies. I have no idea what I did to delete my type, but I guess practice makes perfect. Well, shoot. Okay. Sorry, you guys. Okay. Now let's see if I can rotate this without deleting all of it. So I'm just using this rotation gizmo to get it in the right perspective. And I'm going to change the wording. So I'll use my type tool, double click on that word, and type what I want to type. All right, and since it automatically put it in 3D mode, I want this to be more than just rotate in 3D space. So right now it's in 3D mode because I can rotate it in 3D space, but I want the type to look three-dimensional. And so my geometry options are not available right now because it's not in the right renderer. So for this, I clicked on Change Renderer where it says Classic 3D. I'm going to go to Advanced 3D, and that should give us our geometry options, which will let us extrude the type. You can adjust the bevel depth, the whole bevel depth. I'm just going to extrude it to give it some thickness. And I'm also going to lower the opacity just a little bit. And you'll want to do that through the main transformation properties. But that way, when the biker rides by, you can kind of see her through the, I'm assuming that's a her, it might be a him, It's a her, through the lettering. Y'all with me so far? Okay. Now it's time to animate our type. So bring your playhead all the way back to the beginning and position your type where you want it to be at the very beginning of your presentation. So I think I want my type right there. I'm going to let the biker catch up with the type, like she's getting ready to pass it up. And then I want the type to all of a sudden take off, like it's chasing her, okay? So it's just going to sit still. I might need to give a little bit of rotation right about here because it looks like it's kind of, you know, because that camera angle is changing. So the type isn't moving, but the road angle is changing. So I'd like for it to kind of adhere to that as much as possible. So I'm going to open up my type layer, and I'm going to work with things like position and orientation for my type, setting keyframes for my type. So I'm going to bring my playhead all the way to the beginning. I like the way my type is sitting right there. I like its appearance. I can live with that, so I'm going to keyframe the position and the orientation. And now I'm going to move my playhead and just see how things progress. So I'm watching the biker, I'm watching my type. You can see my type is kind of getting a little bit out of alignment. I'm going to give it a little bit of a rotation, just to kind of get it back over that line a little bit. So as we come into the scene, it looks like it's just hugging that white line. And then I'm going to bring my playhead farther out. And this is one of those deals where less is more. So don't be real timid and start creating a bunch of extra keyframes that you don't need. Let the tweening process do all that heavy lifting for you. So I think I can probably pull this off in about 3 keyframes. The starting keyframe, the managing the subtle rotation at the second keyframe, and the very last keyframe is where I'm going to address rotation and position. And that will set up the keyframe for that. All right, now I'm going to bring it all the way back to the beginning. Deselect everything. My tweening started a little too soon. I actually wanted that type to sit there. So there it sits. Position. So I'm going to move this keyframe. Let's just see if this works. Move it to about right there. That should make it sit still and then take off. And if you wanted to, you could even do a little bit of a scaling at the end. You know, where it just gets a little bit smaller. That makes that by the sea type look like it's really getting far away from you. But this is fine too. So now we'll put some sound with it. Oh my God, I hate this thing. It's the Screen Pal tools that I've clicked on by accident. How do I get out of this? There we go. All right, now my sounds. I want my bite click. And all you have to do to add sound is just drag it to the composition window. So I've added my C wave sound and my bite click, and this just plays throughout. So it's not like that has to be keyframed or anything like that. And let's add some bike sound to this one too. Pretty cool stuff. What y'all think about today's demonstration? Was that interesting to you? Did y'all learn some new stuff? You find it useful, helpful?
I feel like it was easier since we've already worked with those before and stuff.
Worked with what before?
The nulls and like
Oh, the nulls, yeah. And I knew the first time we talked about null layers, it'd be kind of like a really abstract idea. And even the way I explained it, I'm like, they're still not going to understand it, how you explain it. But I know that it's one of those things where the more you use it and you see it in application, it begins to make more sense to you. The flexibility of a null object. They're good to know about. Y'all have any questions? Time remapping. Yeah, so you control click on the MP4 layer. So when you create your new composition from video footage, then that's your first layer in your layers window is that video file. Right click or control click on that and you should see, look for time, and then time remapping should be an option that pops out. Did it? Let me come take a look. All right, well, at least for the demonstration, this was it for today. We got 2 more things that we're going to go through next week, and then we're going to talk about this next assignment, okay? So if you get a chance, practice some of these techniques between now and then, and just kind of get a feel for all the different, variety of things that we've looked at as far as animating type goes.